Reich Watch.
But how this all connects to the process church is that you have all this occult connections, and then you have the Scientology created, and then L. Ron Hubbard takes that out onto the ocean on a Navy vessel or on a boat, and he's living out on the water, so he doesn't have to go by any country's laws. He's just out there floating around, and basically the law of the sea is out there. So he's probably avoiding taxes and things like that is probably part of the reasoning. And so there's a great military type connection to Scientology. People say it's run like the military, as I mentioned in the interview. And it's sort of throughout the thing, it's a very military regimented organization. And then, of course, they have the Sea Org is part of Scientology. So it's all relates to the Navy again. And then while he was floating around out in the ocean, he was creating Scientology domains in certain countries, and he did that in London, and that's where you had the Process Church come out of. Now, it's my belief, I could never prove this, but it's my belief that the Process Church, which came out of Scientology in London, was an offshoot that was created by Scientology. Some people believe potentially as like a radical military branch. And as I mentioned in the interview, that there were U.S. government documents stating that there was a guerrilla group in Mexico. And I mentioned to Patrick in the interview that I had a video where Miscavige, the leader of Scientology, outed himself, maybe without realizing it. He was making fun of the IRS, the U.S. government, going after some child school they created down there for 6-year-olds. And he's reading this old document saying that they had a guerrilla warfare training base down there. And in Extol, in the Yucatan Peninsula, which was exactly where the Process Church went from London. They went there and did training or whatever, depending on what you might believe. And then they moved into New Orleans. And they were incorporated in New Orleans in 1968 by the same lawyer who incorporated the Discordians earlier. I can't remember the year. It's not important. But these are these connections, and then they're all occultists. So my point is that there's this connection between the Discordians, who essentially the concept of their religion is promoting chaos. So it's chaos magic, like something Aleister Crowley would promote and some of these other organizations promote. And I actually did come up with a couple new things in my research just recently. I knew about these, but I was trying to formulate them for this discussion a little bit better. And I found out some connections that are really interesting. There's a person, a musician called Genesis P-Orridge, the singer for Psychic TV and musician for a number of other bands out of Britain. And he did spoken word for Robert de Grimson's The Process Church. And Genesis is well known to be a Process Church member, 100%. I even have photos of tattoos on the arm, Process Church tattoos and the whole 9 yards. Well known. Also friends of Anton LaVey. So you have your Church of Satan right hooked in with that. Created a group called the Temple of Psychic Youth. And they were known for chaos magic. So you have the exact same type of thing as Discordianism. It's incredible. So another thing I wanted to mention that I failed to mention in the interview was that a person named Sandra London, who was a avid promoter and member of the Discordians, she has done many, many interviews with serial killers, famous serial killers. And she actually dated one before they were ever busted. And that was Gerald J. Schaefer from Florida, mass murderer. And she had links to Otis Toole, where she was doing interviews with him, of course, but also promoting his barbecue sauce. And he was a famous cannibal, so they were doing this promotion to sell barbecue sauce as sort of a tongue-in-cheek joke, I suppose. And these are the types of people we're dealing with. And she's a very strange person, but I find her quite interesting as well. And she had some fantastic interviews with people like Kerry Thornley, who was a friend of hers because she was a major person in that church or that religion. Another thing I wanted to mention, I forgot, was that the Discordians' first papers were printed out on Jim Garrison's printer at his office, because they had a Discordian working undercover inside Jim Garrison's office, and they used his printer and his supplies and his money to print out their crazy religious doctrine. So that's fascinating, because Jim Garrison always thought he had people infiltrating and spying on him. It could be them. Who knows? But so to wrap this up, I just wanted to say that Robert Anton Wilson, he was a big promoter of Aleister Crowley, and he's done interviews and has connections with the Genesis Peorage, who was a Process Church member. 100% proven. So I'll leave you with that. And if I can squeeze it in, I'll also include the Miscavige fumble that he did about admitting to the organization in Extol, Mexico.
The idea is that when Crowley and Victor Neuburg worked the Aethers of John Dee in the desert in 1909, that they were there to open some sort of apocalyptic gateway, that this was what they were there to do, and that they were successful in doing it, if completely or just kicking the door open a little bit.
Well, Jack Parsons went out in the Mojave Desert and did the Enochian calls, and right after that the first UFO reports started coming in, and then they came in from all over the world.
Mm-hmm. Well,
it's a bit of a magical chicken and egg situation, isn't it? You don't know whether the magician or the sorcerer in any kind of form, whether it be a person doing quantum physics or Crowley, you don't know whether they're executing their will and intent, or whether there is some other program. You know, the Burroughs-Geisen thing of in a pre-recorded universe, who made the first recording? And that's where those hotspots, as I like to call them, I think that's when they occur. I think that Marjorie Cameron and Parsons were certainly involved in a hotspot. What the fuck it is, I'm not sure, but I think it was a hotspot, and I think Crowley too was a hotspot, and even Ron Hubbard was a hotspot, you know.
Well, obviously he's a very hot spot. I mean, look at how huge his organization is today.
Probably the best example of the vicious nature of these false reports is a document written by David Forsyth, who was posted in IRS Intelligence Branch. The report was written in 1974 and was an attempt to smear the church internationally and wipe it out. At the time the report was written, the church had coincidentally purchased a ranch in Mexico as a boarding school for the children of Sea Org members in Southern California. In other words, the ranch was occupied by 6-year-olds. But in Forsyth's report, he stated, a group of Scientologists is currently training in guerrilla warfare near the town of Uxtal on the Yucatan Peninsula. Slight alter is, those kids must have really been something.